Hello, welcome to another Eagle 6 tutorial video, and we're going to be showing you how to take apart the Tokyo Marui AK Storm, the next generation recoil shot model. It's actually sort of a half disassembly video, but we'll go over that in a second. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is not a full disassembly, but we'll be doing a majority disassembly on taking this into two main constituent parts and then put it back together. And just please bear in mind as well that we've done some slight modifications around here with regards to Dean's connector mod, i.e. defusing, and we've actually got a small MOSFET installed in the front here. So it will be slightly different if you've got the original TM with the fuse assembly. Basically one extra screw and then you just unplug some wires, but we'll show you the basic principle for taking this Tokyo Marui AK Storm and then splitting it, like I say, into two halves, because you have to physically disassemble the recoil unit, blowback unit, to separate the front half, and then to separate the back half, and then, like I say, you can technically go a couple of extra steps further and then remove the gearbox at that point that we're going to be getting to. It's that far into the gun that we have to go in order to like I say, separate this into two halves, like say for instance an M4 where you just normally put a pin out and just slide the upper. Therefore you've got two halves of a gun. On this AK, unfortunately, it's a little bit more convoluted. Okay, so we're going to start with the front handguard foregrip area. So we're just going to pop this little lever up on the side here. Okay, once that's up, you can, and this is how we get access to the battery, you can actually remove the top handguard cover there. That's going to uncover on a normal one a mini Tamiya connection, but obviously we've got a Dean's connection on this one because they're a bit more solid. Then after that, you're going to remove these cosmetic covers that block you from seeing the battery. Basically they cover the holes up on the side, so we're just going to pull them out. There's a small clip on the inside of this one here, which we're going to just do something pointy. Okay, so that's one side and the other, so you want to put them somewhere where you're going to know obviously which is right side and left side, but they technically are labelled. Okay, so now we're going to remove the lower handguard cover. Okay, so that's going to be 4 screws, so 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, and they're 2.5 okay mil, so so put those button head screws over there. Then you're going to pull forward and tilt upwards, okay, and then lift, and then just be careful on this aftermarket one. There's quite a lot of wiring around here, but on the standard Marui, they deliberately navigate all this wiring very, very neatly, which is why it's all wired, cut down and secured and stuff. But on this particular one, like I say, we've got aftermarket gate AB MOSFET at the back here, and then we've removed the actual fuse assembly area and anything that would normally guide the wires and hold them down, so that we can actually physically create room to fit this MOSFET in here, and then we've ran the wiring back down here. Okay, so so on this particular one, we're just going to undo this little Velcro strip we've got going on here. It just basically just keeps that all tucked down neatly. All right. That's going to uncover the wiring. So now on the Marui one, you can just remove the fuse assembly, and then you're going to want to basically disconnect any spade connectors that are connecting this front of the gun. Okay. I would have put some heat shrink on there. Hang on. So I'm just going to remove this heat shrink here. So because we're posting this particular gun off for reassembly by the customer, what we're going to do is I'll provide you a couple of extra heat shrinks just inside the box, and I highly recommend just putting them on here. With heat shrink the actual connectors themselves, but it's never a bad thing. You know, double heat shrink in these things just to protect them. There's always a chance that because they're near each other that they can possibly touch. So it's always a difficult balance between, you know, being able to quickly disassemble and you know, protecting it against every eventuality of a potential short circuit. Okay, there we go, that's the extra cover off there. So like I say, I'll provide you a couple of extra ones on this reassembly. You can just pop them, basically just pop it onto that and then connect it, push it over, just a little bit lighter under there or something, a bit of heat, and that'll just melt the two. So like I say, they're connected two together here, but I always, just as best practice, if you know what I mean, put some extra heat shrink on there just to protect those. So then we're going to disconnect the actual trigger wires. So these are the two wires going to the actual trigger, and these two here go to the motor. Okay, so now that leaves us with we're going to try and disassemble in order to get this section to come away. It isn't, unfortunately, just a case of doing these screws here, so I'll show you what I mean. So so that's a 2mm Allen key. Okay, if these are tight, I highly recommend you take your time and really make sure you've got a good purchase on it, so you don't round them off, because TM put a lot of Loctite on these. And if you feel like it's not going to go, then get some heat onto it. Just be careful, because obviously there are plastic items around here, but you're going to need to do that in order to break the Loctite seal. Okay, so those two countersunk over there. So what we'll do is we'll remove the top cover here, basically a button on the back. I'm just going to push that in and then lift up at the same time. Now this blowback unit here, okay, there's a just pull the spring and the guide forward. Just pull that up and out, and the actual blowback unit just go backwards, and then just wiggle at the same time, and you'll be able to remove that. There's a small notch for it to go into there. Just make sure that the bolt stop system hasn't engaged at this point, otherwise you'll struggle to get this in. Well, you won't get it in. So once we've done that, what we're effectively trying to get access to in order to separate the two halves at this point, it's not a huge amount of work, but unfortunately you're going to need a tri-point screwdriver, which is a bit annoying, which is this one here. So basically it's like a security thing, I don't know why they use them, so but and it's really important that you get the correct size one, and then push hard. Okay, because you do not want to try and round these off. They are just very easy to round off, and basically just if they're done up tight combined with two smaller tri-point, it's just very easy to round them off. So these ones are nice and loose, because obviously we've previously worked on the gun. You can see one I've killed over here, look, see? Like I say, this is just a cosmetic dove colour, so you can, if you round them off, you don't necessarily have to replace them with the identical screws. So Okay, slide the dust cover up and forward. Okay, so it comes off over this bar over here. Okay, so now the actual blowback mechanism that's attached to the actual recoil unit here. Okay, so we've got this joining bar which joins the blowback front part, which operates the blowback lever, the fake lever, to the actual weight itself. We need to disconnect that, otherwise when you try and pull this forward here, it won't go past this spring and the actual bar that's on this side. Okay, so you just pull this and it just gets stuck all the time. Okay, so what we're going to do is remove these two screws off the side. So you're going to want a nice, really good fitting screwdriver, and again push hard. You don't want to round these buggers off. Okay, so basically just normal Phillips. I say normal Phillips, it's nothing actually, it's actually very difficult to get just the right Phillips for every one of these screws. I've got my tasty, this is my G&P set, and I love this screwdriver, it's my favourite screwdriver. I even smashed it all around here just to mark it, so favourite screwdriver. Right, okay, so what you want to do is ever so slightly just pull this back, and as it pulls back just lift up, and then you can negotiate forward until this bar comes off, and then you want to remove the spring with it, just keep it on there. Okay, so we've now just pulled that bar through there, sorry, lifted the bar up and done that, so that's now removed, basically separated the front hop unit support sort of area, outer barrel support, from the gearbox and the blowback section. So now we've just got two more screws, which is one under there, one under there. Again, we're going back to that 2.0 Allen key. Okay, we've got one there, okay, on the inside. This is the new design, so slightly different from the 74 on its takedown. This 47 is so much better. So again, you want to push really hard. You want to make sure that you do not round these off. Okay. Again, these TM has a tendency to actually put a lot of Loctite on these. Okay, so those are out, and so now what we can do is just basically wiggle out this section here. So going back to the wiring over here, there's a wire here which goes through from the motor through the actual very cool bolt stop system on this. Because they've moved to a brilliant bolt stop system. It is a much better improvement over the M4 soft mod, which was a mechanical style. It's now moved over to a sort of style which is much more universal, basically. So sorry, I'm getting a phone call, so let me just check that. Yeah, so sorry, I've turned all the work phones off. So now we can just pull it all through, but you actually want to sort of pull this one off here. I don't know if you can see it, and disconnect that. Like I say, this system is fantastic, and it's really great for the future in that it's a universal system. It's no longer requiring some kind of special lever to disconnect a special part of the trigger assembly to magically sort of stop it. This is literally just power off, power on. Yeah, so it's a much more universal style of having bolt stop functionality. When it's activated, the power stops, and that's why we're sort of struggling with some of the MOSFETs for this particular model, because the one MOSFET we've actually got ETU style to actually physically fit into this. When you disconnect the power and reconnect it, it has a 3-second delay where you can enter programming mode, and obviously if every time you deactivate and reactivate bolt stop, you have to wait 3 seconds, otherwise you might accidentally go into bolt stop programming mode. Yeah, that doesn't work too well. So unfortunately the ETU MOSFET, which can fit for the 74 series, just doesn't translate this, because it's obviously got this much better style, which is obviously very similar to the one they're using on the Mark 46. It's much better system for the future. Okay, so we're just going to pull this out. Oh, be careful. So make sure these wires are pulled up and out of the way as you pull them forward. Wiggle, wiggle. So, and then this will come out. Okay. So that separates the front half of the gun from the rear half, and I think that's basically about as far as we need to go in terms of separating that half and that half. If we need to go further in terms of getting the rest of the gun apart, make sure always remove gearboxes in safe. Okay, if you are going to be going to the point of removing this gearbox, you will need to remove one flathead screw from here. That'll take the grip off. There'll be 2 Phillips screws inside here. You can then remove the motor cage, and then you'll need to remove this stock tube, which will be a 2.5, or is it 3? 2.5 Allen key up on top, up underneath, sorry, and 2 on top, because there's another one hidden under there. And once those are removed, these are self-tappers, so make sure to find the thread when you're putting them back in, and that will remove the entire stock tube assembly, uncovering one small 2.5 mil, 2 mil Allen key going into the Allen key screw going into the back of the spring guide, which is why this one has to have a very specific version 3 style spring guide, which has a screw hole on the back of it, so whereas the normal V3 doesn't have a screw hole on the back of it. Very important one to have on there in order to get that screw and to hold that properly into the back of the plate in its place. So we'll leave that one there, and then we'll carry on in a second doing the second half, which is the reassembly. Okay, so we're going to be carrying on the reassembly of this now. So in theory, you've got your 2 pieces of the gun, and you're going to want now obviously reassemble to get it back going again. So we're just going to basically do the reverse of where we previously were before. So the sort of, I suppose, hardest part, I guess, is making sure that all the wiring is up out the way and goes properly into this passageway here. You can see on this particular one we've had to just make a little bit more room on this for the wires to actually fit. You want to negotiate it in. Come on. So you want to hold the wires so that they go into this runner on here like that. Okay, and then wiggle it down. I like to sort of pull this just to keep it sort of taut down here as you're actually sliding this in, to make sure that nothing gets caught up under here and bunched. So then just keep sliding until the actual sort of front barrel assembly clicks into place. Okay, then we can pull this forward. We're going to bend round this wire here, and we're going to reconnect it to here. Okay, make sure it's tucked neatly out of the way. We're going to put a screw into here just to hold this all in place while we're moving it all around, which is the 2 mil Allen key. what I like to do is not do them up fully, because what you want to do is seat it in the location, and get everything. So remember, standard practice when you're installing screws, always go backwards before you go forwards. Okay. So we're just putting the last two inside the mag well here. Again, don't be doing any of them up tight, so you just want to locate them all first. Right, now when you've got them all located, you can start actually tightening them up. So get them so that they're hand tight, and then just try and go a little bit further, and that should be plenty in terms of torquing these up. Okay, so 2 mil Allen key for this. Right, so we're going to get this joining bar and spring back onto the blowback assembly. So this one here is basically that orientation on the spring. Okay, and then we're going to sort of dangle it a bit like this, and what we're going to do is we want to hook this onto the hook that's in here. Okay, don't know if you can see that. Alright, and then we're going to angle it down, and then we want to get it onto the side here of the actual blowback unit. So sometimes it might be easier just to kind of, you poke this down here, and just kind of wiggle it. So this has to be in front of this. I think you might find it easier if you actually hold this bar in position and then stretch the spring just a little bit, just to make sure that this bar goes in front of that. And you can pull this back and get it into place there like that. Okay. So just hold that bar in place as you stretch the springs ever so slightly, just so that this bar has a sort of thin triangle bit at the front, which has to just drop in front of this blowback part here, and then you can obviously just pull this recoil back ever so slightly and just click it into place with these locating screws on the side here. Okay, so now what we can do is get those Phillips screws back in on the side here. Tighten these up. Okay, just test that feature. So obviously as you're doing this, it's operating the blowback bar. Now we're going to install the blowback bar. So it has to click into this hole and then slide forward. All right, just make sure it's free moving, and then put in the spring guide and the blowback bar returning spring here, my handle. Okay, just make sure that's working fine. So the recoil's working fine. You can see how the mechanism operates, creates the effect for you. So now basically, oh actually, bloody hell, so ignore all that, just take these out. This cover's got to go on first. So if we don't do the cover first, you won't be able to get all these on. So in fact, I'll make sure that no, we can put these back on. Oh, there you go. So, oh, that was fun. I'm not going to edit that out. There you go. So get these tri-points back in. Oh, come on, you fiddly bugger. Alright, remember, backwards. Find that bite. And then just go forwards. There it is. Again, this might be one you want to just sort of locate a couple. I'm not keen on doing these up tight. If you want to stop them coming out, maybe just put a tiny drop of red Loctite on there, then wait 24 hours for it to set. But I wouldn't want to over tie these up, not with these how fragile these tri-points are. Okay, and just do him up. There we go. Okay, so we're just going to pop the top cover back on. So this top cover, there's a little line inside here. You can just see it there. You want to make sure it goes into that line. Okay, and then you won't be able to push it down. So go back a bit and then get your finger in there to push this in. And then try and lift it up so that you're back in that line. And then put it into that like that. So technically what you can do is put it into the line and smash it down, so classic style, so real AK style, but obviously just in terms of dealing with customers' equipment, if you are somebody that's from a shop or something, obviously you want to not scratch all that up, if you know what I mean, that kind of thing. So obviously we'd highly recommend pushing it in before you put it down. So next we're going to reassemble. Obviously if it's a normal TM one, you're going to try and get all the fuse assembly back in, but we're just now going to reassemble the gate MOSFET. So first we connect the gate wires, or trigger wires, and then we're going to do the black, the red, and then how we're going to negotiate this is to fold it round. And then there's just this side here, you want to sort of tuck down so that it's sort of in that sort of orientation, so that you've got two wires coming down here and then the MOSFET sitting flat there. You can then just fold your wire over, your Velcro, just to neatly hold that down. And then, I mean, if you really want to go to town, you can get some cable ties in there, but I was trying to do something that was sort of reusable, that you don't have to sort of cut every single time. I suppose I could make a whole bunch of these really, and just wrap up this whole area. So make sure that the actual battery wire, the joining wire, comes up the side here and through this small gap. Okay, so that's where that's just going to come into that, and all this sort of wires here, you need to tuck this lot down and this lot down, okay, because we're going to be bringing in the lower handguard, and this has to go over everything without actually damaging the wires, so everything has to be all neatly in just that right place. In order for that, there's a small cutout here where it has to come in line, and if everything isn't neatly down, this handguard will not. No, it's back in. Brilliant. Well, easy peasy, eh? So just like that. Okay, so and then obviously we're going back to our screws. I wish I had time for more tutorial videos, but our workshop is just basically continuous builds with backlog, you know, and there's always going to be a gun build that's going to need to be done. So and unfortunately that's kind of impacted our tutorial videos that we used to do, but there's still a bunch of old ones on there, so we hope people still enjoy them. You never know, we might be able to get bigger as a company, and then obviously expand our gun tech services, so we have multiple gun techs, which might free me up a bit, but until then I'm sort of needed daily, fixing people's guns, so upgrading people's guns. Right, so so that's your, this is like I say 2.5 on there. Okay, nip tight. So we're going to put these covers back on. Remember, right side, left side. Just poke this one underneath there, lower it down, that gets them in place. When you're negotiating the 1600 battery, which we recommend 7.4 volt, it's sometimes good to actually poke it inside the top cover first and then negotiate it all down. We find that's better than trying to put the battery in this part and then trying to bring this down over the battery. But yeah, it is a tight fit getting the 1600 in there, but it's possible, and it's a decent sized battery for running this gun. So so there you go. So all reassembled. So we split it into two halves, and then we reassembled those two halves. And like I say, from the point that we got to, it's a very, very small leap to actually physically removing the gearbox. Just remember, best practice when removing gearboxes, for the majority, 99% of them, you do need to be into safe before you ever remove gearboxes. And like I say, it's really good practice to just build that into all airsoft guns. Not just the AKs, but especially on these AKs. Make sure it's in safe before you remove the gearbox, otherwise you'll damage the selector plate on this. But other than that, hopefully it's helped you out, and like I say, thank you very much for using us. So.